Hola clase. Sorry, I'm not able to be in class today. I've had a family situation come up that I'm not able to be at school today, but I hope to be back by Friday, if not sooner. So today I want to quickly review one of the concepts that you had a chance to look at yesterday, and then we're going to look at a little bit of a new concept, but not too new. So before spring break, we talked about affirmative two commands. Remember, we were down in the library conference room. We did some activities with it. And then on the last day before spring break, we did our little direction activity down in the multipurpose room. So if you can go to your Google Classroom and open this note sheet or quick view sheet that I provided you with, we'll go through it quickly. And then you're going to stay in Google Classroom to open some notes to complete today. So affirmative two commands, what are they? So commands are when you tell someone else what to do. And if with the two commands, that means it's someone that you know pretty well. So that's a family member or a friend. And what does affirmative mean? Affirmative means it's positive. You're telling someone what to do. How do we form these? We form these by using the third person singular in the present tense. So for hablar, it'd be habla. That's the he, she form. Comer would be come. Escribir would be escribe. Run would be corre. Dance would be baila, etc. So what about reflexives? When we have a reflexive that's an affirmative command, we take that pronoun that we normally put at the beginning. So for example, if I wanted to say you sleep, I'd say te duermes. And if I wanted to say you sleep, like I'm telling you, you need to go to sleep, I'd say duérmete. And so I add that pronoun to the end of the word. Now remember, we have to add accent marks to maintain the pronunciation. And remember Finley's rule of three, count back three, and that's where we know that we'll need to put our accent mark. And finally, there are a couple of irregulars in this form, and they're here in this chart. But today what I want to look at are the negative commands. So negative two commands. It's a similar kind of format. So if you can just, I'm going to pause for just a second and let you guys open up your Google Classroom and open up the note sheet, please. You're going to have to type some of this material in, so if you need to go back and watch this video again, you can pause it to take a second to look at the wording, but hopefully the sentences aren't too long that I'm asking you to add to your note sheet. So what is a to command? This is similar to what we just talked about. Commands are used to give orders or advice to someone that you know well. So who is that? That's your family, your friends, and your peers. So this is just like the positive commands we're talking about. But the next question is, what's a negative mean? Well, we obviously know negative means no. So a negative command means that you're telling someone what not to do. So before we were just telling people what they should do. Now we're telling people what they should not do. How do you form a negative to command? This is a little bit different than the positive one, so we're going to break it down into a couple steps. So step one, you're going to put the verb in the present tense of the yo form. Once you have that verb in the present tense of the yo form, you're going to remove the o and you're going to add the following endings. So for an AR verb, you're going to add an ES. And for an IR verb and an ER verb, you're going to add an AS. So notice that that's a little bit different than what we normally do. It's kind of the opposite, right? So AR verbs normally have A endings and ER and IR verbs normally have E endings. But in this case, we've swapped them. So that's just something to note in your mind that in this case, you use kind of the opposite of what you would normally use. So let's practice forming some of these. All right, so hablar in the yo form is hablo. So if you want to tell someone don't speak, you'd say no hables. Jugar in the yo form is juego. So you want to tell someone don't play, you say no juegues. Volver means to return. So yo vuelvo, I return. If you want to tell someone don't return, no vuelvas. Comer, obviously is eat, yo como. So the negative would be no comas, don't eat. Escribir, yo escribo. Don't write, no escribas. Dormir, duermo. No duermas, don't sleep. So this it jumped up here for us, so we'll just go ahead and click ahead there. So just notice when we were just doing those practice ones, if it was a stem changing verb, we maintain those stem changers. So dormir, for example, was a stem changer, so duermo becomes no duermas. And then those car, gar, and zar verbs that we've seen a couple of times do have a spelling change to maintain their pronunciation. So sacar, for example, becomes QU, so we get that K sound. Apagar becomes GU to get the G sound. And almorzar becomes a C to maintain that kind of S sound when we add those endings. What about all those verbs that we learned back last year and earlier this year when we reviewed to have those irregular yo forms? All of those verbs that have irregular yo forms maintain that same irregularity in their negative to commands. So some of those verbs are conducir, conocer, decir, hacer, ofrecer. If you don't want to type all those out, it's okay because you've got them listed below. But just notice that they do maintain that same irregularity. So now let's work on those. So the first one, conducir. Yo conduzco, no conduzcas. Don't drive. Conocer, conozca, no conozcas. Don't meet or don't know. Decir, yo digo, no digas. Don't say. Hacer, yo hago, no hagas. Don't do. Ofrecer, ofrezco, no ofrezcas. Don't offer. Oír, yo oigo, I hear. No oigas, don't hear. Got a couple more on here. Poner, pongo, no pongas, don't put. Salir, to leave. No salgas, don't leave. Tener, to have. No tengas. Traducir, to translate. No traduzcas, don't translate. Traer, to bring. No traigas. Venir, to come. No vengas, don't come. And finally, ver, to see, is yo veo. So no veas, don't see. So reflexives, remember when we were looking at the positives, we started attaching those pronouns to the end. But with negatives, we stay with our normal rule, and the negative command, the reflexive pronoun remains before the verb and does not attach to the end. So for example, no te acuestes tan tarde, don't go to bed so late. Or no te caigas, don't fall. Both examples of reflexives, and notice that that pronoun stays before the verb. We only attach when it's a positive or affirmative command. So do we have any irregulars? Yep, we've got 5 of them, and they are dar, no des, estar, no estés, ir, no vayas, saber, no sepas, and ser, no seas. So to give you a couple of examples in context, I decided to snap some shots of my little animals here at home. So you're going to see Bear and Chi-Chi, and I've got some examples for you to see them in practice. So for example, Bear, no juegues con el dinosaurio. Chi-Chi, no tomes el mono. Bear, no te duermas. Y Chi-Chi, no comas la banana. So those are some examples just to help you kind of see in context how you might use those negative commands. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to practice some of those.